the signs that we're not detoxing well are skin issues, rashes, things like eczema, even allergies, chronic allergies. That could be a sign we need to detox. And then with the bioenergetic testing, we can scan for what's going on, and then I can actually make a specific remedy from that test that'll help your body detox. Kind of like turning off the light and shining a black light around the room.
Living with autoimmunity doesn't mean settling for less. Inspired Living with Autoimmunity is the show for high achievers who want the energy and vitality to live fully, not just manage symptoms. With your host and autoimmune coach, Julie Houghton. It's time to take your power back.
Dr. Honican, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
I am as well. There's so many, you bring so many different flavors to the show. So first, I would love for listeners to hear about your journey, because for me, I do obviously personally get excited when people have their chronic illness reversal story. But you were raised in a family where you all were doing things a little differently than most of us. So how did you get in, and you don't just focus in one area. So how did you get into, to become a naturopath and into Chinese medicine and all of the wonderful goodies you're doing?
Yeah, so I grew up and I'm a daughter of a naturopath and acupuncturist. My parents, Seneca and Kay Anderson, actually met in 1970 at a macrobiotic study house. My mom went there because she wasn't feeling well, and she went there to get healthy. And my dad was studying macrobiotic, a way of eating that's a Japanese style of eating, really focused on yin and yang, no sugar, no dairy. And so they moved to Georgia in 1980 and opened up Longevity. We're one of the first naturopathic practices in Georgia. And so when I grew up, we were kind of the crunchy granola kids. We weren't vaccinated. If you opened our pantry, you'd see barrels of brown rice, sweet beans, and we were a little different. And so when we would get sick, we would take homeopathics and herbals. And I really, to this day, I've never taken traditional antibiotics.
Yay!
I was lucky in that regard. And then, I kind of decided pretty early on to follow my dad's footsteps. I took a course in college, multicultural healthcare, that talked a little bit about acupuncture. And I was like, I think that's the route I want to go on. And then in Georgia, you actually can't get a license as a naturopath. So I decided to go down the acupuncture way for licensing in Georgia. And I studied acupuncture in San Diego, and that was awesome. Came back to Georgia and joined the practice where my dad was seeing all kinds of chronic autoimmune patients. So I just kind of dived right in about 2003.
I love that. Amazing. And now the numbers compared to 2003, it has skyrocketed, unfortunately, autoimmunity. One of the things I'm so excited to learn more from you about is you use different tools than we use at our longevity clinic, where we're truly functional medicine based and lots of what I would consider they're not typical, but specialty functional medicine tests, and DOs and MDs and you have a different approach, which I know is also really effective. And I would love to learn a little bit more about your kind of diagnostic process, if you even call it that, and your treatment process, because I know there is definitely more than one way to approach things.
So my dad, he retired recently, but he in the 1980s was taking trips to Germany and studying a lot of homeopathy and German new medicine, and from there was something called acupuncture according to Ball that originated using what's called electrodermal acupuncture screening, where you can test the energy of different acupuncture meridians, the large intestine, the lungs, the kidneys, and see if they're resonating high or low, and then what can balance those energetic disturbances. So right now I use a bioenergetic testing system called the Quest 4, and we can connect your body's energy into a circuit. You hold on to these brass electrodes, and we're able to run a scan on your body using different energetic frequencies that stand for different things. There's a frequency that might stand for dairy or Lyme bacteria or parasites, and your body will resonate yes or no, or positive and negative. Sometimes I compare this to your light goes on in your car, you take to the mechanic, they scan it.
That computer.
Yes. So we have a way to dial in. Some people know about muscle testing. This is kind of an advanced form of that, but I'm able to ask the body hundreds and hundreds of questions. So we're always wondering which organs or glands are stressed, what are the toxins, parasites, viruses, bacteria, molds, what are the food sensitivities, what are the nutritional deficiencies, and then we can make a plan. And the beauty is that we can find out that information right then and make the plan right then, as opposed to sending off to the lab and waiting. And of course, labs are amazing, but they can be very expensive.
Yes. And already I'm thinking, that's blood tests and saliva and urine and stool. And, there's no one panel that would answer all the questions you're able to ask.
Yeah. So one of my patients, I targeted Bartonella bacteria, and he brought his IGeneX lab report, and that was the main bacteria that showed it. He had to spend $2,000 on that, even though he was diagnosed with Lyme medically. I just couldn't believe that. But I said, let's just keep using this bioenergetics then. Let's not run any more IGeneX for this case. We'll just see if you're clear or not on the energy testing.
So I know in clinic, you just described like what the testing is like in clinic, but you also can do remote work with people?
Yeah, at this time, what we use is hair. So you can collect a little bit of hair and you can mail that in, and we can put the hair in the circuit through your DNA and test you the same way as if you were here in person. Or sometimes we'll do that a stick visit to someone's in the car, and we'll get a little hair if you don't want flea or COVID running around.
Sure.
The office, and we can do that with stick visits or remote testing, and then we're able to see patients from all over the country that way from a little bit of hair and really get to the bottom. Patients really want to know, particularly they want to know about mold and Lyme.
Gotcha. And there's such an overlap with mold and Lyme and autoimmune, and so sometimes it can be really nice to get to those layers and know what you're dealing with too. Your treatment options are also different. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're using thermography and what you're doing with that?
Yeah, so we do 3 testing modalities in the office. One is a urinalysis called the bioterrain assessment. So it's sort of like, there's the germ and there's the terrain. And so if the terrain is healthy, then the germ means nothing. But, and that can look at the liver and kidneys and adrenals, sugars, etc. We like to run that as a lab. And then we do the bioenergetics on every visit. And that can pinpoint markers for autoimmune, such as antibody disturbances and different toxins. And then the third modality that I like to do is called computer regulation thermography. And so most people are aware of the thermography that can rule out breast issues, but this is actually a whole body thermography. And what we do is we take the temperature or the measurement of over 100 points on the body that correlate above the teeth, the breast, the liver, kidneys, the colon, the pancreas, pituitary, all over. And then the ovaries, then you undergo a cold challenge. And you basically have to stand in a room for 10 minutes in your underwear, and then that causes some autonomic nervous system issues. And your body's actually under stress, supposed to shunt blood to the head and cause the brain points to warm, and everything else from the neck down should cool. So let's say we remeasure in 10 minutes and your liver warms 3 degrees, that's showing an issue in the liver. Or let's say the liver cools 3 degrees, that shows a hyperregulation. So I can look at the patterns. Yep, is the energy blocked, which could be due to metals or molds? Is the energy hyper-regulating, over-responding, which could be adrenals, autonomic nervous system issues? Are the points warming or paradox, which is could be clues about cancers and things like that. So it can give a lot of information, and there's certain patterns that I can recognize for things like Lyme disease as well.
Wow. And I would imagine autoimmune as well.
Autoimmune patterns, there's a lot of what's called hyperregulation, which means you're supposed to cool about 1 degree after the 10-minute challenge. If you cool 4 or 5 degrees in several quadrants in the body, the thermography report will flag autoimmune. And so I can get a lot of information. It's not really supposed to be a cancer diagnosis. It's more of what are your priorities for treatment? Because we all have a lot of toxins. The priority could be working on the gut and dysbiosis or the endocrine system or to get rid of heavy metals. That can help us in this world, in functional medicine, naturopathic medicine. What are we chasing first? It can really help guide us.
Wow. And so I would imagine using all three of those modalities together, like you can really get a nice hierarchical pathway
Exactly. If the
for treating
thermography
people.
says, dig for toxic metals, what are the metals in the bioenergetics? I can say, is it aluminum, is it mercury? Yeah, so the bioenergetics helps me answer the questions that I have asking the body. What's going on? The body knows, and our body's energy, so it knows what's going on. So it's a great way to tap in. It can really give us a snapshot of what the patient's going through. They might have diarrhea, or I might find giardia or something like that. And a lot of these things are hard to find in the hospitals and lab tests.
Yeah. And even on lab testing, I mean, a lot of times, things will hide. So someone may say, well, I did a stool test and it was fine, but it doesn't really mean it was fine. You could have, something tucked away. So you're kind of just going like direct to the source.
Particularly parasites, they rarely show in a stool test.
Yeah.
Rarely, and then we'll have a patient detox and they can see the bugs coming out. So we know that.
Wow. Amazing. And what are, I know there's some common pitfalls that you talk about with people trying to detox or, when it comes to toxins. I think everybody, even everybody listening at this point would agree, like we all need to be supporting detox and I'm not even talking about, like the toxic levels that were driving my autoimmunity or, some of those big, which is important too. But I think in general, everybody on this planet today needs to be considering like, am I detoxing? Let's start there. What are signs that you are maybe detoxing well or sufficiently?
Yeah, I think that if you're sweating, if you're moving your body, if you're pooping and getting good sleep, those are all important. But the signs that we're not detoxing well are skin issues, rashes, things like eczema, a lot of these mast cell issues, even allergies, chronic allergies, that could be a sign we need to detox. We're able to pinpoint which areas need support, such as the liver. And then with the bioenergetic testing, we can scan for what's going on. And then I can actually make a specific remedy from that test with actual homeopathic frequencies that'll help your body detox. Kind of like turning off the light and shining a black light around the room. There's the bacteria. You take that remedy, detox that bacteria, send that message to your body to get rid of it. And that's a really nice, safe way to detox. But then we don't want the patients calling saying, I don't feel well. So we're trying to support them in that with gut health, liver health, lymphatic support, or maybe doing some therapies. We have an amazing lymphatic drainage therapy where I'm able to see before and afters on the thermography how congested the lymphatic system is.
That's so
You're 50% blocked. Let's do 5 lymph treatments where you measure, okay, you're 10%. So that's could be life-saving treatment there.
So when are you opening a clinic in Colorado?
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Well, because I just feel like it's just so all of these things that even 20 years ago were rare, right? And I know, again, you're from a family of early adopters. And when I think I had heard you say that your dad, was kind of digging into Lyme in the 80s. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my dad had Lyme in the 90s and they I'm from the East Coast. I know Rutgers was doing work on genetics with Lyme, but like they just really didn't know anything.
Yeah, we are a little bit afraid of using the word Lyme because we're not medical doctors. So when I joined the practice in the early 2000s, patients were coming in. I'll sit in with my dad, and he was using the electrodermal stringing and finding Lyme spirochetes in all kinds of patients. And we were afraid they were going to go home and Google it. And of course, they would say, you don't have Lyme. There's no Lyme. Their doctors would say there's no Lyme in Georgia. And so
Right. Oh, yeah.
We just, you're resonating with the bacteria. You're resonating with spirochetes. We're not as afraid anymore because I feel like the patients now are really more familiar with Lyme. They're kind of asking, do I have this bacteria and what do I need to work on? So that's really changed a lot. The information is getting out there. Robert Kennedy just had that round table discussion about Lyme, which is awesome. But Lyme is one of the great imitators for autoimmune. So it may not be the only thing, but oftentimes it is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I would imagine today's equivalent is, that other word we were afraid to say a couple of years ago are you seeing, what kind of changes have you seen in practice since 2020? Like, are you seeing like post-COVID-y weird stuff?
All the time.
Yeah.
So in every visit, I scan for SARS-CoV viruses or vaccines. And I'm seeing 20-year-olds coming in with POTS. And I had a young man come in the other day and chronic fatigue, dizziness, insomnia, headaches, depression. And I was thinking, I wonder if it's long COVID. And the timeline is about 2021 because they started feeling bad. And that's what came up. So it was nice to get the answers. And then I'm able to test specific remedies. Okay, should we use nattokinase or curcumin or herbs by cold skullcap or, Chinese herbs, antivirals, and things like that. So that I can test. And I might have 3 long COVID patients who resonate with different remedies.
Yeah.
What's going to work. Or maybe some people are sensitive to different supplements, and we can really test for that.
Yeah. So smart. And so it's so just needed truly personalized treatment, right? Like there is no across the board. And even especially with COVID, Lyme would be the same. It can present so many different ways in the different, so it's not like a clear cut, like, oh, measles, that's easy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but sometimes the different co-infections will match different symptoms. Like if people have unexplained eye issues, I'm wondering about Bartonella. Or if somebody has really anxious, I'm wondering about babesia. But sometimes, one toxin could cause a different symptom to everybody. So everyone is such an individual about how they respond. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it must be such an amazing tool, though, to be able to, when you take your people who maybe they know, they've got chronic Epstein-Barr or something that they've already been dealing with pre-2020, right? And then symptoms get exacerbated. And it's like, okay, well, just that my challenge sometimes with people with a diagnosis is like, it doesn't mean A, you're not your diagnosis, and B, it's not the cause of everything necessarily. Maybe, but not necessarily.
Right. We don't want to say my Lyme. We want to say I have infection I'm getting rid of.
Exactly.
Yes, I feel like
visiting bug has got to go.
Yes. I do talk to patients about that because we're giving them the answers, but of course we believe in the body's capacity to heal, and we're able to detox or we wouldn't be alive. And there's things that we can work on and to give them hope, because we don't want them to say, okay, Dr. Honican found, Lyme bacteria. This is the rest of my life. And now I'm just going to give up. So we definitely say, no, we found it. Let's work on it. You'll become better. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's a process, but give us 6 months. And that can be really encouraging.
Yeah, which is great. And I love that, realistic too, right? It like, at least for the chronic stuff, you didn't get as sick as you are overnight. Like there is no magic pill. Let's get rid of, like you said, it's the body is what heals itself when you clear the blocks and give it what it needs. So I love that you give people like realistic, like this is going to take some time. We're going to work on it.
Yes.
We
have 4 practitioners here at Longevity, and then we each have a coordinator, and our coordinators are almost ready to become practitioners. So we've grown, but we have a pediatric specialist, and she wrote her dissertation on pans and pandas.
And so she's getting busier than she should be too.
She's getting very, very busy. An autoimmune condition due to that or some other hidden infection that we have to unearth. And then we have another lady, Maria, who's focusing more on hormones and Dutch tests. And then we have another lady, Janelle, who focuses more on mold and the highly sensitive. She knows how to start one thing at a time. And
I like that. The highly sensitives.
Highly
I am
sensitives.
familiar with those.
Well, that's great.
So yeah, it's a good way to call it. I remember I had a mold remediator come out to my house once, and you know, I was asking questions, and he said, "Well, do you have SIRS?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, you sound like you do." I said, "Well, I don't." But if he had said, "Are you highly sensitive?" I would have said yes.
And
I
that's
don't
really good
identify.
information for us to know as a practitioner. You don't want people feeling worse and returning all their open supplements because they took one and, felt sick.
Right.
So definitely it's really helpful to have somebody to test to make sure you can tolerate those.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, back to the bio individuality, like it is amazing how something like even like a single, I'm talking about blends or something that, the body already has and you want to support it with more. And some people are like, nope, not ready for that.
Absolutely.
And so, I don't know, I can see where you guys taking your time and but that's such an amazing, so you guys support everybody basically if you're doing from peds to hormones to
Absolutely. And then we also offer acupuncture. I do acupuncture 1 day a week on Fridays, and then I kind of put on that traditional Chinese medicine hat, which
Nice.
both naturopathic and acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, digging for the root cause, but in a different way to treat. And then we have another acupuncturist who works a couple days a week. People generally come in to acupuncture for pain, but it can be really helpful for digestion and stress. And all my patients fall asleep. They're always surprised about that, but so we're going to get better results if they calm their sympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
So,
And even that is such a gift. I had somebody say to me recently, like they went for a massage and they fell asleep and they feel like they wasted the massage. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Like that's, you let go. That's great. That's what your body
Absolutely.
needs. So I say the feedback can't get better than that. Then you put your patients to sleep while you're dropping needles in them, right?
yes, absolutely. And fertility is another avenue to explore with acupuncture because we're able oftentimes to get the cycle in balance. And I like to see someone through all the phases of the cycle, the ovulation phase, the luteal phase, the follicular phase, and then a lot of reproductive clinics, they will recommend acupuncture before or after IVF, something like that. That area's been really highly studied. They may not recommend it, but if the patients ask about it, they'll say, do it. Anything
They'll
they
say,
want them
okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
That's always a fine
Which
area.
makes so much sense too. For obviously, like the biology part, but even just the ability to help people step into a parasympathetic state. The whole people that are struggling want a family. If you're seeing a fertility specialist, you've been trying, right? And the whole like, oh, hold it loosely, don't stress about it. It just is really tough. And
Yes.
so I think probably even just that alone.
That can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a great tool. I want to go to Georgia. I want to come to your clinic and do all the things. I would make like a whole day. I know when thinking about your autoimmune clients, what are you, and again, everybody's individual. It's not, I remember 10 years ago, like, oh, I can't wait to find my root cause, right? Like there was one thing. But like, there are patterns. What do you see as some main drivers or things that if people haven't considered exploring, essential to look at?
Well, mold, of course. We need to make sure we don't have a moldy house. In Georgia, definitely we have hot, humid summers, and I have a basement that's underground, non-daylight, and I've had to do some work with mold. And so that comes up a lot. My patients ask for Aspergillus or Psyllium or different molds in the body or Candida. And then we talked a little bit about Lyme, which is the great imitator. The immune system just has really trouble finding the spirochete bacteria.
hider.
They like to hide, change forms, and then the body finally is like, well, I guess I'll attack the thyroid or the brain cells. And I can cause autoimmune. And then I was always taught to check for Epstein-Barr virus on every patient. So every patient I check every visit for Epstein-Barr and different herpes viruses.
Every visit.
Every visit I scan.
Wow. Okay.
And because they can get active and reactivated,
Yeah,
and something
absolutely.
like COVID, or another flu. And then, if that pops up, I'll make a imprint. We call it a specific homeopathic imprint, or I'll test antiviral herbs, maybe elderberry, cat's claw, other patterns.
And you
Definitely
talked
a lot
about
of digestive
toxins
issues,
already.
toxins. Yeah.
Yeah. Food. I mean, I know you do again because you're treating whole humans, and you already said that you're exploring gut health, as possibly the only person I've ever met that's never taken an antibiotic, which is just incredible. See, so amazing, and here you are, vibrant and healthy.
They're there if I need them, but I'm also lucky to have a whole nutrition shop at my disposal, so I can take
Right.
the silvers and
Yeah.
the herbs and the berberines and the golden seals.
Yeah, and then God forbid you ever need one, it's going to probably really work because I don't know, but so gut health, I'm assuming kind of across the board for all of it, whether you're talking, working with fertility for somebody or autoimmune or Lyme. I'm guessing that that's kind of another, like across the board, most people could use a little up level in their gut health.
Absolutely. I stand for the frequency of leaky gut, and then digestive disturbances, and then, of course, the stomach and the pancreas and the colon and small intestine, and then did for the toxins that could cause the leaky gut. So the glyphosates and the parasites, the candida, and then test for specific remedies to heal the gut, like glutamine and Slivrium, aloe,
Nice.
phospholipids. And then so we can get indicators about autoimmune or leaky gut, and then just figure out what's going on. So very, very high. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's become one of those. I used to roll my eyes like, oh, gut, everything's the gut, but it has kind of become, especially for somebody with autoimmune, I pretty much go on. And again, I use testing and we take good histories and all the things. But if they haven't intentionally taken steps to heal their gut and they have diagnosed autoimmunity, that that's a component. How long have they had it? I don't know. But so it's always interesting to find out from practitioners, do they see kind of the same thing? It goes with like you said, the toxins and all of these exposures we get.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we like to test for gluten and dairy and soy and corn and sugar on every visit. And then we can get a little bit further with food sensitivity testing. It's different than allergies, just, a reaction. And typically, if someone doesn't have autoimmune, rotate these foods out of the diet. But if someone does have autoimmune, probably avoiding gluten, dairy, and sugar for a lifetime.
I know nobody likes to hear it, but it's those are absolutes. I had somebody who was like, "Well, sugar it wasn't positive on my food sensitivity." I'm like, "Sugar's inflammatory, hard stop. Period. Like no matter for everybody. It's just some people can manage it better."
Right, and it might not show in a test because if someone hasn't had dairy for 3 months, it might not show sensitivity, but still, that's might be a discussion. Well, probably a lot of times the foods will show on the bioenergetics that they're eating too much of them. So that can be a tricky part about it. It's like what to take away, even if they're not testing sensitive on that visit.
Right, but you know what you know.
Yeah, inflammatory foods. Don't track the root and it didn't show.
Those are the obvious ones, and then we go because you probably see, people that have been on their journey for quite some time. I get so many people coming in the door sensitive to healthy foods because they've given up gluten and they've given up dairy and they're eating, lots of good veggies and eating the good things, but they never healed their leaky gut. And so now they're sensitive to the good things,
That
which
happened
is temporary.
yesterday. Yeah, my client, she has some mast cell itching, skin issues. She has been better for a year and a half. She's been over the moon. And then she came back in yesterday and the itching's back. And, she had switched to all almond um, products instead of gluten. So I think, how much almonds does it take to make a cup of almond milk? Probably a lot. So if you're doing almond bread and almond crackers and almond milk and almond cheese and almonds, very high oxalates.
Yep.
So she tested sensitive to oxalates. I'm hoping we can pinpoint to what's going on, but it also is a clue that her gut isn't where it should
Quite
be.
where it needs to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing process. At least that's what I tell myself as far as, just because I feel really well, there are healthy foods that inflame me that I would look forward to being able to handle down the road, not sugar or gluten or dairy. Um, but healthy veggies and a handful of things. But so I think if we look at it as a process, that can be really helpful. And I'm sure she was really discouraged, and you made her feel better that like there's a reason.
And I found I found H. pylori and some gut issues that could be the cause of this, and they call it a mast cell issue.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm actually encouraging her to do a GI map in this case, try to pinpoint some of these histamine producing bacteria and try to do a little more lab, which I don't do often, but I'm excited for that one.
But when warranted,
Yes.
mast cell is another one, those kind of just the hyperhistamine reactions that I feel like has, used to be a kind of small population that now post 2020, like it's just way more common than it
You
used
are
to
right. So many skin issues, flooding in the door, and a lot of pox. We talked about earlier. I'm seeing a lot of kids with dizziness.
be. Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of mast cell, a lot of mold, a lot of Lyme, a lot of post-COVID. And you're right, it's getting harder than it was 20 years ago. We would find one thing, and now
Right.
we're working off the modern face.
Yeah.
Yesterday that I mentioned with the itching, I looked back a year and a half ago and I had checked 10 boxes of toxins and imbalances, and yesterday
See?
just about 3. So I was like, okay, we're going to get better quicker this time.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be 2 step forward, 1 step back, which is hard.
It's never a straight line, at least not truly long term. I don't feel like, and I think that setting those expectations is good. I know, but especially, you mentioned like pans and pandas and like this younger, we're seeing a lot of adolescents too, a lot of high school kids just in the last year or so with some kind of an inflammatory or mast cell response seemingly out of the blue, that you just didn't see those kind of numbers in that younger population.
You're right.
So it's amazing that you have such great tools to help them.
I don't know what I would do with that, with the bioenergetics, because it just really helps me take the guesswork out. A lot of times I think I know and I'm right, and sometimes I'm wrong. I'm like, I really thought it was going to be mold, and I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah.
So,
Or there's a second, or you're right, and there's also something else that needs
or the
addressing.
body is saying that's not what we want to work on right now.
Right
Now we want to work on opening a lymphatic system. We'll work on mold later. So sometimes it's not necessarily they don't have that issue. The body's saying, here's where we need to start.
Yeah.
Do we start with the gut? Do we start with the brain? Where do we start?
Yeah. So amazing. Well, we're at the point of the conversation where listeners know I am going to ask the question that tends to stump people, which is, what is one thing that listeners can do starting today to improve their health?
Well, I think that it's really important that we eat well, that we exercise and find something that we love to do, and that we regularly detox, and that we have connection. I feel like for our health, it's like we're a tabletop with 4 legs, and we need the nutrition, and we need the connections, and we need the exercise, and we need to detox. And I feel like those are the four things. So, the one thing to do to detox could just be to make have a detox tea every night, have a dandelion tea every night, or a milk thistle. And then moving the body, walking every day is super important for our lymphatic system, because it can get so sluggish if we're sedentary or sitting all day at a desk. Yeah, desk for a long time, and the body really likes us to move and really likes us to sweat. And then as far as the diet, we talked about gluten, dairy, and sugar, but 5 things that we do love and make delicious meat and proteins. My husband and I did carnivore for 3 months, so I'm really enjoying vegetables again. And to be honest, I really didn't do it because I was really feeling that bad. I wanted to lose a few pounds, which I did, but I wanted to support my husband because his knees were really hurting, and he lost some weight, and his knees are feeling a lot better. So the carnivore diet can be really great for autoimmune as well. But
yeah, thank you. I was like, wait.
It's temporary, 1 to 3 months.
It can be a really great reset. It just can help with getting that inflammation down and help the body reset. And then it's good to expand back out. Assuming you can.
More foods into the microbiome, more fiber, more variety, more fruits and vegetables. But it is a great, and also really gets rid of the sugar cravings fast. When you just eat and eggs within a week, you're full. So, can you have vegetables? I'm like, nope, just meat and eggs. Can you have almost nope, just meat and eggs? But we're having fun adding some green beans and asparagus back in.
And aren't they delicious? It's so fun. It was like my most proud mom moment when my daughter had been traveling when she was a teenager, and when she got back, and she always makes, you make the best choices anyway, but it's just a different quantity and quality of veggie intake. And she got back and was like, I can't wait to have, vegetables. And I was like, yes, we did it.
And I love her. I love her.
Haven't heard either of my sons exclaim that.
That would be nice.
But they do eat vegetables. They're just not quite as, but it is amazing. I remember working with a client several years ago who, was probably 2 to 3 weeks into a customized elimination plan for her. And she literally asked me, totally serious, like, were strawberries always this sweet? Like, because her taste buds changed, she wasn't getting the artificial sweeteners and bombarded with all of the chemical created foods that so it was just cute. She could taste sweet again, in nature. I'm like, yes, they're meant to be dessert. Like, it's great.
I love that. You're right. Your taste buds completely change when you take out sugar for a long time.
Yeah.
And I also like to take herbs regularly. Every morning I put some mushrooms, tinctures in water, some chlorophyll. I'll put in some milk thistle. I like to take different herbs at different times that are antimicrobial, cat's claw, things like that. And I like them in a liquid form where I can just drink them down in the morning. So I think herbs can be really underlooked. They actually have a lot of nutrition in that. Like, for example, chamomile naturally has magnesium. That kind of makes sense because it's calming, and echinacea naturally have zinc in it. So they have so many properties, not just antimicrobial, but they're so multifaceted and what
they're really nutrient dense. Like, even for people not willing to go quite that far, or who may not know, the right way to use herbs that way, even just adding fresh herbs to your cooking really can bump the nutrient density up immensely.
That's so true.
Yeah. Do you have any do's? I know that could be a whole nother conversation. But do's and don'ts for, I'm thinking I would not know what to put in a glass to do. I mean, I tinker. But anything people listening that are like, oh, that sounds great. What should they not do? If they want to explore herbs and tinctures?
I think probably just start slowly. So, if you look at the back and the bottle says take 60 drops in water twice a day, you could start with 10. See how you
Gotcha.
feel, maybe 10 drops twice a day, kind of slowly work up. We have all of our patients slowly work up on all of our protocols and start with probably about half the daily recommended dose at first. So you can go by
I think that's brilliant advice. Yeah. Yeah.
just in case you are allergic to the herb or you have a little bit of a detox reaction. And then if you do have detox reactions, often binders are amazing for that. Charcoal with zeolites and or with human fulvic acids, they can really bind to the toxins. They're actually great to take with a glass of wine or something like that. And kind of bind.
Right. Preventative. Yes.
I think binders might be a great thing to take when you travel.
I don't travel with even eating out, and I know I may be losing out on a little bit of nutrition, but I have trust issues, and so when I travel and and I know I'm going to eat out, I will take binders, even just with my food because I am the sensitive flower.
What's your favorite binder?
I really love. I'm like a convert. So for traveling, I tend to just go hardcore charcoal, like for that use of like I don't really care. I'd rather not take the hit, so I'm gonna take charcoal. But I love using, and I've done, and I'm a collector, so I use a variety of different things, but I really love for compliance the Cellcore binders that you can take with other stuff because as somebody who has binder alarms on her own cell phone, I know it's hard for people to separate their binders from the other good things that they're taking. And so that's been a game changer, the Cellcore
Cellcore
binders.
makes great products. Yeah, the other day I ate a piece of fish, and I don't think it was a good piece of fish. My stomach was really hurting. I grabbed a binder from Quicksilver, Ultra Binder.
Oh yeah, I love the Ultra binder.
In 30 minutes, it was like I had lost 10 pounds. My stomach ache went away, and I was like, I need to start remembering to take this.
It's just good to have with you. Like, I can't wait until I'm like an actual old lady because I am the person who I always have, meat sticks, grass-fed meat sticks, nuts, binders, you never you can count on those things always being in my bag.
I recently learned, I think a lot of people in the naturopathic world have been a little bit afraid of detoxing heavy metals and using binders. They're afraid that the metals would be displaced in the body. And I recently learned that that's not the case. Either the binder is going to bind to the metal or it's not. It's not going to bind to the metal and move it to your kidneys
and stick it somewhere else. Yeah.
I was really glad to hear that. We can be afraid, they have a little silver in their mouth, a little silver amalgam mercury. We're afraid to use a binder. It's going to take it out of the teeth and put it in the kidneys. That's not the case.
No. And especially as and that's like we're specific, right? I don't eat much tuna, but if I do, I'll use chlorella. Also knowing what I'm using it for. And I love that you said if you have a glass of wine. When my one son was in college, he had his glutathione NAC binder combo for if he was going to be have a night where he was a typical college guy, he would just know okay, I'm gonna support with these things.
Smart.
Yeah, tools. Right?
Or cilantro with fish would be that would key
absolutely.
It tastes great with fish a lot too. So.
Yes.
That'd be good.
Amazing. Well, I am so excited that we finally got to connect. And I know we could do another episode, so hopefully you'll come back and join us again. And for people that are listening on the go and aren't going to check the links, where can they find you and more about you?
Yeah, we are Longevity Health Center in Roswell, Georgia. We've got a fantastic website. All of our information's on there, pricings, and there's a box for remote testing if you're interested in getting a remote test. I believe it's around $300, so it's pretty affordable get a lot of information for that amount of money.
So amazing. And can people choose someone heard you? Can they want you to do
Yes,
to
they
be
can
their
say only practitioner, or they can pick preferred and then put Alice Honican in there.
gotcha.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Amazing. Well, Alice, thank you so much. You shared, I think, really like expanded people's perspective on, just other modalities and ways that they can get help. And you're so knowledgeable, and which makes sense since you were basically born into it. But so appreciate you spreading that knowledge and sharing with us
Well,
today.
thank you for starting this podcast and sharing this wealth of information with your listeners. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
For everyone listening, you can get those show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Inspired Living with Autoimmunity, hosted by Julie Houghton, your autoimmune coach. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone in your life who needs to hear it. For the complete show notes, links, transcripts, and everything discussed today, visit inspiredliving.show. You can also send in your questions there to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Remember, it's time to take your power back.